Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Friday, June 8th, 2018, something like that. What a day. Another one. Donald Trump, still president. Don't know what we're going to do, but I guess we got to go forward. No puppet, though. I do see this morning that on his way to the G7 summit, do they even bother calling it summit anymore? First of all, let me say, it's a G7 summit. His comment on boarding the Marine One helicopter, I guess, outside of the White House was, we should invite Russia. Russia. I saw a picture circulated by Mark Knoller this morning of the president commenting on the situation in the morning, and his wasn't the first one that I saw. But yeah, I did see very early on. Where was this one? Let's see. Fox Business picked it up. Zeke Miller was the first reporter that I happened to see picking it up for AP, saying, on the South Lawn before departing for Canada, Trump calls for Russia to be reinstated to the G8, which, he notes, thankfully, was used to be, of course, the G8, now the G7, since the annexation of Crimea. And they tossed those Russian bums out on their butts. And no puppet. He wants them back in. It is now, of course, up to, I think this may be the summit that reduces it to the G6. It's apparently been very clear. Macron has said as much. I know that Trudeau is not particularly happy. Merkel, not happy either. But every signal is being given that Trump is headed to the G7 with every intention of annoying the living crap out of the other six countries. And he said as much. He said, I'm going to go and I'm going to yell at people, basically. There's no areas of agreement left. Plus, on the way up, he says, we should also add troublemaker Russia back so that they don't feel, they don't feel bad about having annexed Crimea. And I mentioned the Mark Knoller tweet because he included a picture of Trump, and I don't know whether he snapped it with his phone or what. It kind of looks like it. And it's just, it's classic Trump in that I commented on it. It's like the guy has no normal lip positions. And you can see he's probably right in the middle of saying Russia, and his lips are wound up in that motion there. And of course, in addition to his face and hair being a blur, his hands are a blur because he can't keep his hands still. Russia, we should be adding Russia. That's an interesting quote here. Russia should be in this meeting. Why are we having a meeting without Russia? We have a world to run. No puppet, just I can't, meet with the other six leading industrialized nations minus Russia and work things out. But why are we having a meeting without Russia? Because they've devolved into barbaric feudalism. So why would you add them? Well, they're very strong and they have a lot of missiles, and also Putin tells me what to do. And it's a lot easier to know what to do if there's somebody there giving you hints, is basically all he's saying. So off he goes to break up the G7, to reduce it to the, as I said this morning, G6 plus a 239-pound spy who will be leaking everything that gets said to Russia. Because no puppet, you're the puppet. Let me just say, that I can tell you. You're wrong. No puppet. So great. Here goes the country. And if he doesn't screw it up then he's going to leave early, as it turns out. I thought for sure he was leaving early for golf, cheeseburgers, and a little squat on the toilet. But no, he's going to North Korea. I guess they're ready to do that now. I don't have to prepare in any way. That was the big news of yesterday, was that the guy doesn't have to prepare for anything because it's just nuclear weapons and it's about attitude, which is exactly the case to take when it comes to nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons won't hurt us. It's about attitude. So fantastic, wonderful, just the best. I got to tell you, that I can tell you. Believe me. So here we go. We're on our way, kicking off today's show. Daily Coast Radio is live now. Bill has told me so. That's how I know it's true. Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman. Hi, hello. You can reach me on Twitter by @ing me, I guess. Don't @ me. In fact, use the hashtag KITM, Kagro in the morning, to let me know what. I don't know. I'll tell you. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll tell you what Bill says I'm going to do. I'm going to analyze the sudden and disastrous spike in moisturizer prices. But I assure you, listeners, they'll have a soft landing, and I will make certain that that's the case. If moisturizer gets beyond your reach, I can provide. I have a new service. It's like Uber, but for moisturizer. It will drive around Washington, D.C. to the Ritz-Carltons and pick up a bottle of moisturizer for you. That was the Scott Pruitt grifting emergency that happened between the end of yesterday's show and the beginning of today's show. But there's more, of course. He doubles up on each news cycle. I was chuckling, by the way, not for breaking news, but because of the response from John Zebrowski, who I guess responding to my retweeting of Mark Knoller's picture just says his mouth enraged me. And that's really where we are with this. I mean, I look at his face and I'm just bile just rages up and I can't help but vomit. It's really distracting. By the way, speaking of distraction, let's see. Apparently The Hill has tweeted, noticeably enough, with a picture, because that's the way they do things. Donald Trump says he may posthumously pardon boxing champion Muhammad Ali. Ladies and gentlemen, no one has asked him to do this, so we can't pin it on celebrity, but we sort of can. He met Muhammad Ali. He gave out the Muhammad Ali, whatever the hell it was, humanitarian award. He just had a bunch of, all foreign, by the way, Muslim representatives over for, to mark the end of Ramadan, which I thought he might skip. It's sort of, one of those presidential things that you do for holidays, and to be inclusive, real presidents have had this event to mark the end of Ramadan. And I thought, radical Islam guy wouldn't do it, but he did. But he didn't invite any American Muslims. He invited the representatives of rich Muslim countries from around the world, the ambassadors from, Saudi Arabia and Qatar and UAE and places that give me money were allowed to come and do that. And I guess maybe that's like, I know another Islam guy, Muhammad Ali. I just found out that funny name is because he's Islamish. So I'm going to pardon him. And, well, for what is the next question, if you know anything about, like, one of the most famous people ever in the world. Ray Steele, not him. He's not the most famous guy in the world, but he is famous. He's a news producer at WRTV in Indianapolis, who I happened to see come across the transom pointing out he and every other person who refused their draft call in Vietnam. Now, so did what's his name? The guy who's president now. But he'll Spurs. That's different. But you know the story of Muhammad Ali as a conscientious objector refusing his draft call. But everyone who refused to answer the draft call in Vietnam already pardoned, it says here, by President Carter in 1977. I didn't know whether that was limited to amnesty to return to the United States if you fled to Canada, but maybe it was a general pardon. Also, his conviction for refusing the draft call was overturned by the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court in 1971. Therefore, what is there to pardon? And the answer is nothing. Donald Trump just makes it sound like, you know what? Dinesh D'Souza pointed out the other day in one of his annoying tweets that this was the big proof that Donald Trump was not a white supremacist. He had pardoned Dinesh D'Souza, who's brownish, and Jack Johnson, who's black, and now Alice. Is it Alice? Was it also Alice Johnson? Is that right? Everybody named Johnson. You're free to go. But also a black woman not also a black woman. She was the only black woman that he's pardoned so far that I know of. And anyway, this was supposed to be proof that he was not a white supremacist. And ordinarily, that's not a bad idea to say, well, he's not just pardoning white guys. And so it's kind of true. I mean, Dinesh D'Souza is what it is. I mean, he got pardoned for his political positions, and the other two were pardoned because celebrities asked him to. I'm glad they asked him to, and all that, I mean, I think we're well covered in that area, but I guess he thought this would be a good addition, and who could criticize him? And ordinarily, I would say it's true. I don't have much criticism for some of these pardons necessarily, but don't like the process. Oh, and the orange moron who's doing it. I hate that guy. There's no changing that. And no amount of pardons is going to make me think different, though it does make me think about why other people didn't take care of the pardons. This one, no, it's like, I'm going to pardon Santa Claus. Well, all right, I won't argue with you. It's just he's never been, charged with anything or has never, doesn't have a conviction to his record. But no, who could argue with you? We all love Santa Claus. So go ahead, I guess. Well, why? You don't want me to do it? You hate Santa Claus? No, I'm just saying it's not a thing that you need to do. But all right. By the way, speaking of the pardon from yesterday, I just remembered that we have Greg Dworkin's secret memo to me yesterday explaining why Alice Johnson's commutation rather than a pardon, and there is a difference, is of such interest. And as we left it off yesterday, we said, okay, well, it is kind of true that maybe this pardon could or should have been granted by Barack Obama, and it didn't happen, and I wonder why. And we might as well note that. Well, I guess Jeff Zeleny did note that. And he is the CNN senior White House correspondent tweeting about President Trump. And so I guess it would be a good idea to check in with him about this since he had something to say. Why didn't Obama commute Alice Johnson's life sentence? The DOJ recommended 3 times against it. I suppose that would probably be a pretty good reason for a president not to do it. Although, you can always overrule him. That's true. It happened once in his first term and twice in his second. The last denial came only days before he left office, January 6th, 2017. Under Obama, the request didn't reach the Oval Office because DOJ denied. That is to say, there was a normal process. The Office of the Pardon Attorney usually vets these things, and their recommendation usually stands. It doesn't have to, but it usually does. So, it's an interesting question as to, I don't think there's any information here as to why they rejected it. And we might have been on target with the guess that we offered up yesterday, by which I mean that I offered up yesterday, which is, at bottom, well, she was convicted in a drug case and, Barack Obama, any Democrat, obviously, is going to be a little touchy about the possibility. It's a very weird thing. It's like a Nixon to China in reverse sort of a deal. And I mean, that's relevant to everything else that's going on with Trump, by the way. The way our stupid discourse is set up in Washington, if a Democrat were to say this is an unfair, overly harsh sentence, this life sentence, though it was cocaine trafficking, and cocaine trafficking does not have a good reputation in this country. And in the, in an effort to demagogue the drug issue in the 1980s and going forward, Republicans, of course, were screaming about the need to be tough on crime, and we got to send these people away for life, and, 2 strikes and you're out. And every time a new drug becomes the hip, hot, scary one to report about, as crack did in the 1980s, then Republicans and conservatives begin demanding getting tough on it, particularly if, people of color are trafficking in it, primarily. And they want everybody put away. And that was the big difference, of course. Crack cocaine was primarily being trafficked to the communities of color and really like one color in particular, as it happens. And second, of course, the base ingredient in the crack was the cocaine, which was being marketed and distributed and pushed primarily among white consumers. And then we began to notice these tremendous disparities in sentencing between he was just, partying in between stock trades sentences for powder cocaine, and he's a hardened criminal and he's taking over inner cities and running it like it's Mogadishu for crack cocaine, and we got to execute / send these guys away for life, whatever. And it's become a big issue, and it has remained a big issue. But only Republicans, apparently, in general, feel safe in offering up any sort of suggestion that maybe things have gotten out of hand. Because if a Democrat does it, he's soft on crime, he's a friend of drug dealers, he loves terrorists, whatever it is. When a Republican does it, sober-minded, he's tough on crime, but he's fair, you see. And so Republicans can kind of get away with that sort of thing. And so in a sense, it's like I said, sort of a Nixon to China kind of a thing. Speaking of which, we now have Trump going to North Korea. Again, it's a much better parallel of Nixon going to China, Trump going to North Korea. I mean, they're in different worlds and they're doing different things entirely, but it's a better comparison than, say, Trump or Nixon to China, Obama, and drug offenders. What? I don't get it. But you get the idea. There's leeway there given by the press, the public, granted to themselves exclusively by Republicans, while denying it to Democrats, even though, at bottom, it's the Democrats who typically are the more concerned about the thing. And the problem is that they never really get the guts because they're afraid of the political attacks for standing up for that thing, it is a real issue. I know in their hearts are in the right place, but what's the difference if when you get to a position of power, you don't do this thing? Well, I need to stay in power because later on I need to pass universal health care or what have you. Well, I know, but somebody else could come along and do that. I mean, in the meantime, couldn't you just get this thing done? And it's a question of, I suppose, what hill do you want to die on? And, people make different choices. So here we are on this pardon issue. And my guess is that it was concern with the legacy going forward, or political attacks against his political party that convinces Obama, if he even knew about it, not to reach down and pull this paperwork up off the desk of the pardon attorney and say, I'd like to do this one. And it may never have reached his attention either. I don't know if it would have made any difference if Kim Kardashian had showed up and made a case, but maybe. And so that's where we stand. Okay, so, wow. One of many things happening this morning deserving of attention. Let's see, what else have I opened up here? Oh, I should mark this one so that we can put it in the pile for today's summary. And boy, do we miss Scott Anderson. I am tired of writing these summaries. He's back middle of next week, so I think by Thursday he might be able. I don't know if I really want to press him the day after getting back from his vacation / not vacation at all. He's probably working very hard. Just like members of Congress, ladies and gentlemen, please give if you can to relieve them. Okay, anyway, lots of items piled up here. Where are we going to go? Oh, yes, right. I mentioned to you the Scott Pruitt. We got to do the Scott Pruitt news because there's always Scott Pruitt news. So after the show yesterday, but before this morning's show, the word was he sent aides around town looking to procure for him some of the fantastic skin moisturizer that I don't know whether, and there's different kinds. Was it hand lotion, body lotion? I don't know. you got to talk to a dermatologist to figure out whether there's a real difference. I don't know. Anyway, he sent the staff around. He wanted the Ritz-Carlton hotels apparently have the finest moisturizer known to man. And I think probably that's an intentional wording. It's sexist perhaps in nature to limit it to known to man, but I would be willing to say that it is probably the best moisturizer that most men are aware of, if they're aware of one at all. Women who perhaps pay closer attention to things might have better suggestions, though surely there are men who have some as well. However, apparently this Ritz-Carlton moisturizer is like to die for, and I don't know, he must have stayed there and taken the little free bottle home, which is, people do it. It's not super classy, but look, you paid for it, right? He's looking to have his EPA assistants, paid people, paid out of the Treasury, go to the Ritz-Carlton and get me more of this fantastic moisturizer. And I don't know whether they were able to get it right away, but what a super classy guy. Between the used mattresses from the Trump International hotels, which apparently have their moisturizer is for crap. I really would love to have wound up and just said the actual word. And one of these days, we may just have to loose ourselves from the self-imposed radio, the radio restrictions. Maybe we can do that. That would be a premium episode where I just say whatever the hell is on my mind, and then we just put it out there. Okay. So what's up? Right. There was the moisturizer, and I guess the Trump Hotel moisturizer is terrible. So he went to get the Ritz-Carlton one, and I don't know if they came up with any, but there's more. He's also sending people around to pick up, apparently. Let's see. Where do we leave off with Pruitt? Dry cleaning, yes. Moisturizing lotion, yeah. We got the Chick-fil-A thing on the air too, right? So I guess that's it. Nothing more this morning. The Washington Post reported, and they must be planning to put this stuff out drip by drip. And they're doing a great job. Nothing is getting him fired, of course. That's not happening. But now people are having a great time trying to imagine what's next on his list of scandals. So let's see. I'm curious because I thought I read that they actually couldn't come up with the moisturizing lotion over at the Ritz-Carlton, and he may have said you need to go to a Ritz-Carlton in another city or something. They also have been picking up his dry cleaning, which is not all that unusual in Washington, D.C. You're not supposed to be making your people do that, but all over Capitol Hill, you'll find stories of Capitol Hill aides being sent to, walk the congressman's dog in the middle of the day or pick up the dry cleaning. But the lotion is a new one. And again, in combination, please buy me a mattress, buy me lotion. I want a soundproofed office with biometric locks that can only open with my fingerprint. Man, I think that guy might not be working in there. I'm not really certain what he's up to. Can't hear. Not sure I wanted to hear. But really, honest to God, you're creating a hostile work environment, sir. You've asked me to buy you mattresses, lotion, and lock your door. Nobody really is going to say to him, all right. Well, anyway, that's what he's up to. By the end of the show, we'll find out, of course, he's been, roasting live cats in a fire pit in the backyard. EPA, and for no particular reason, and then selling them as Peruvian grilled chicken. I don't know. It's possible. Anything can happen with this guy. That's the value of having somebody like him around. He's so entertaining. Okay, let's see. There are other stories I know I wanted to share with you, and they're hanging around. Let's take a look. Should we do some of the long form ones? Maybe after our first break, we can take care of that one. Let's see. What's this? There are some things now in my pocket which we can't tell what they are. Here's one that was offered up by, I think, Jonathan Chait, who said, "This is the scariest thing I've ever read." And let's get some maybe the horror dramatic music would be helpful for something like that. Ooh, yeah, there we go. I have a feeling it won't live up to this, but it is in Politico magazine, the What Me Worry president, along with the little shrug emoji, which they've cleverly given a sort of a golden blonde or orangey blonde, like really dark urine. Orangey, actually. Tilde over the shrug emojis to make it into a Trump guy. The What Me Worry president, Donald Trump, has long said he doesn't worry about the future because nothing really matters. And you all say I'm overreacting when I say YOLO, nothing matters. Next week, he'll be negotiating with a rogue nuclear state by Michael Cruz in Politico magazine. And we're not going to be able to get too far before we take our break. But let's tease it here before we head out. My attitude, Donald Trump said last month, is whatever happens, happens. How many times has he said that? About how many things? He was, in this case, discussing trade talks with China in the White House. But he could have been talking about almost anything because he says this and things like it almost daily. Right. Absolutely true. Hey, he said in his first week as president in an interview with Sean Hannity. What? No way. Talking about his pending Supreme Court pick and Democrats' response. Whatever happens, happens. So deep, man. Whatever happens, happens. He said last summer, in a speech at the Department of Energy, talking about deregulation and the possibility of protests. Whatever happens, happens. He said this April at a rally in Michigan, talking about negotiations with North Korea. This isn't just filler language from a famously extemporaneous and detail-light public speaker. It is, in fact, a guiding principle of a downbeat personal philosophy that largely has gone unexamined by Trump's many chroniclers, but as Trump's administration lurches into the most high-stakes, high-profile moment in his presidency, that is the summit, well, ... we'll find out what's next. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching KagroX or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We left off ... just before the break reading what Jonathan Chait described as the scariest thing he's read to date about Donald Trump, the What Me Worry president. And yes, we were, of course, treated to a couple of examples of Donald Trump just literally saying whatever happens, happens about basically everything. And now he says it as his administration lurches into the most high-stakes, high-profile moment of his presidency, so far anyway, next week's scheduled summit in Singapore, with North Korean despot Kim Jong-un. Observers express puzzlement, at the very least, at this blithe, shoulder-shrugging, c'est la vie, except he can't say that, facet of his disposition. When he says, we'll see, again and again and again, and they are linked, this time to several instances of him saying it, Trump is giving voice to one of the least talked about but most abiding convictions of his long, loud public life. His unambiguous belief in the inherent meaninglessness, that's all it says, the inherent meaningless, LOL, YOLO, editing, no editing matters, meaninglessness of human existence, and his repeated self-identification as a fatalist. I'm a great fatalist. That's funny. He told Newsday in 1991. Now, I was going to say, look, like most things, I don't give him credit for a governing philosophy. He just does what he does. So, like, the idea of his saying that he's a fatalist, why do you always say, whatever happens, happens? Why do you always say, we'll see? Well, it's because I'm a great fatalist. I would say it's because I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know how to predict it, and I don't know, everybody knows we don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know enough about the topic to say something knowledgeable sounding about it. So I just say, we'll see what happens. I know we'll see what happens. Time is linear. I get it. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll find out later on time isn't linear. But for now, and don't tell me that, Donald Trump is like a genius relativistic physicist, because we'll see what happens. It might happen, it might not. I don't know. We might go into another dimension. Time might run backwards. Don't tell me he's not doing that. But okay, I mean, you could say he's a fatalist, and he might even clearly has heard of the word, but I don't know if it really means, if he knows what it means or what. Somebody probably said, that's pretty fatalistic. What is? When you say whatever happens, happens, it means you're a fatalist. Fatalist, that's good. I'm a fatalist, right? But it's not, I'm a fatalist. That's why I laughed, right? Like, Donald Trump, are you a fatalist? I'm a great fatalist. You see what I mean? It's like, he's not just a fatalist. I'm probably the most fatal guy you ever heard. I'm the fatalist-est of all time. Later in 1997, he told CNN, apparently, I'm very much a fatalist. He can't just be a fatalist. He's the greatest fatalist. He's very much a fatalist. Many people are saying I'm a fatalist, the greatest fatalist of all time. And verbatim still, another quote, summer of 2016, very much, he told the New York Times, very much a fatalist. It's entirely possible Trump, whose aversion to reading books and his limited attention span are matters of public record. It's very possible that he doesn't really know what he means by the term. Thank you. And by the way, I have not enough patience to read to the next paragraph. Very often, these people who write for a living are quite good at it, and I should trust them. But we'll see what happens. It's entirely possible that Trump, whose aversion to reading books and limited attention span are matters of public record, doesn't really know what he means by the term. But the accepted definition of fatalism, good, we get one, a belief that people are powerless to alter the course of events because they are predetermined, is more or less the one Trump has cited as a secret to his success, the liberating key to his ability to handle pressure and emerge from his periods of greatest peril alive and emboldened. And I just have to say, the most depressing thought in the world. I see now why Jonathan Chait thought it was dangerous. I think it's super depressing on top of it all. Can you imagine that all the things that Donald Trump has done and all the things that Donald Trump has escaped accountability for, if that's all predetermined and he's really predetermined to skate and skate forever, then I give up. I mean, I gotta believe. I don't think I'm a believer in fatalism. If I was, though, I would be the greatest one ever. But the idea, if it's all predetermined, there better be a comeuppance. I mean, there could still be in there. I mean, right? It could be predetermined that he escapes for 71 years and then, like I said, falls into a wood chipper or gets, what did I say yesterday about Jean Pirro? She gets caught in a cider press. I don't know what's going to happen. You're terminated. And we stand in a metal stamping plant. Anything to get rid of this guy. And I hope that's predetermined. Then I would be happy. I'd be a happy fatalist. But, we'll see whether I'm a happy one or not. I guess, right? So that's the real definition of fatalism. A belief that people are powerless to alter the course of events because they're predetermined. And he thinks this is the key to his success somehow. I don't know what that's even supposed to mean, except I was born rich and I'm going to stay rich, and that's depressing too. However, it is something worth keeping in mind, not only heading into the meeting with Kim, But as the intensity of the anticipation of the results of the Mueller investigation ramps up this summer. To some who know him well, Trump's fatalism has been a source of his unbounded confidence, courage, and nerve. He fears nothing. Roger Stone, who met Trump in 1979 and is his longest-running political advisor, told me this week. That's worth nothing, but okay. As much as I've had personal issues with him, says Sam Nunberg, again in the news, one of his earliest 2016 campaign advisors, who was fired twice by Trump and earlier this year called him a dumb F, like as one word, dumb F, for doing so. I respect the president. Now that can't be true. What a dumb... I respect the president. I respect the president for the fact that he is fearless and he's always going to do it his own way and let the chips fall. Okay, I don't respect that, but all right. Others, though, see something darker and sadder. A nihilism born from Trump's disinterest in and disconnect from everybody except his immediate family and perhaps even them. A person can be fatalistic when he's empty inside, Trump biographer Michael D'Antonio said in an interview. There is no one Trump cares about in any deep, enduring way. No one. Not even his children. Tony Schwartz, who wrote The Art of the Deal for Trump and has been, for the past couple of years, one of his most incisive critics, told me, not me, but the writer of the piece, in an email, there are no traditional values he holds deeply, or at all, values which might give him a North Star and a belief that anything matters. And by the way, this section illustrated with the photo snapped of him, I think by just like a visiting diner at Mar-a-Lago during the infamous incident while he's hosting Japanese Prime Minister Abe at Mar-a-Lago, and they hear about the North Korean missile launch, and he's sitting at the dinner table out on the patio reviewing all the confidential and highly classified information. Mike Flynn is up there behind him. Steve Bannon milling about. There's this blur of activity going on around him, and he is sitting at the table, as it says here, unperturbed. And he's got an elbow on the table and his chin resting on his elbow, and he's got this silly grin. He's like smiling, toothlessly smiling for the camera of the Mar-a-Lago member snapping the photo, which should never have happened. And just this blur of activity around him because the North Koreans have launched a missile over Japan, and he's like, I don't know. I got nothing to do here. I'm thinking about golf. What's for dinner? You know, that's true. That's bad news. Interesting here, by the way, I observe that on the table is it's set with water goblets and wine glasses, and it looks like Trump has got a Diet Coke. I can't tell whether it's diet or not. It's in a glass. So he's drinking Coke. This is like super high class international dinner here. But there's a couple of water goblets on the table, and whoever's sitting next to him has got a water goblet, has got a straw in the water goblet, plastic straw with, how they do this at restaurants. The bottom of the paper wrapping of the straw is torn away so that it can put it in the water, and the top is left on for sanitary purposes. It's just very interesting. But the water glass, some would say it's half empty. I would tell you it's half full, and I don't know whether they just fill the water goblets only halfway there because it's Trump, let's face it, they're being cheap, or whether because if the paper is still on the straw, they couldn't have drunk it a full glass down to half with the paper still on the straw, right? So I don't know. I'm just sort of curious about this. Like, on top of all the important things that are happening, can you imagine Donald Trump has them saving money on the water bill by only filling the water goblets halfway at Mar-a-Lago? Somehow that's easy to remember, to imagine. Okay, back to the article. Trump is nominally a Presbyterian, it notes here, and a devotee of Norman Vincent Peale's Power of Positive Thinking, precursor to the prosperity gospel. But that's interesting. I never really thought about that. But next to nobody sincerely thinks religion or faith in any standard sense drives his decision-making. His deep-seated conviction, however, that nothing really matters, it does. We'll see how it all works out, but in the end it will work out, Trump said last month about China and North Korea. Can't tell you exactly how or why, but it always does. It's going to work out, okay? And I guess if you're rich enough, everything works out. Like, oh, the world is going to hell. Well, I'll just stay in my apartment. To people versed in international diplomacy, this can sound like dangerous naivete, which it is. At best, an excuse for a lack of preparation for a negotiation that could have global life-threatening consequences. At best. The White House hasn't had a cabinet-level meeting yet, according to Politico reporting, and Trump appears ready, or not, to wing this summit, in the words of former George W. Bush aide who worked on Asia policy. That's the wording I used in the summary yesterday, and that's basically it. Right? It's not that the White House hasn't had a cabinet-level meeting yet. It's that they haven't had a cabinet-level meeting on North Korea. I found that out yesterday. John Bolton is asking nobody's opinion on anything, and the president isn't interested anyway. This is the flip side of Trump's fatalism. What has made him fearless is what makes him careless, because he's never had to pay a lasting price for his mistakes. For much of his life, he could afford to be cavalier about consequences. First, he had the safety net of his rich father's money. Then, he was deemed by bankers in New York and casino regulators in New Jersey to be essentially too big to fail. And finally, and most important, the only person he had to worry about was himself. There was no right or wrong result for Trump. Transactional, Machiavellian, and unburdened by morals. The only adverse outcome was one that made him look bad. And he trusted that he could spin into a win, whatever that was. Ergo, there was no reason to fret. There was nothing to fear. This was the superpower that made him president. But now, he is the president. And the stakes aren't his name or his fame or his unappeasable ego or his ability to profit from all that or to just not be stopped. There are consequences for his actions, unavoidably, inevitably, and not only for him at this point, for literally everybody else. Trump is nothing if not resolutely self-contradictory, if that can even be a thing. And this talk about meaninglessness and predestination can sound like a rebuttal to his well-established status as a practitioner of a particularly obstinate, self-centered strain of free will. I alone can fix it. Or, I'm the only one that matters. The president, his former political advisor, Michael Caputo, told me, could not fight as hard as he must every single day, unless he believed he could change things for the better. That's not the vigor of a fatalist. Trump's expressions of fatalism also fly in the face of his take all precautions, self-preservational habits. Always insist on a prenuptial agreement, for instance, as well as his bubble boy idiosyncrasies, his distaste for travel. Boring, is the quote here. His resistance to shaking hands. Barbaric, is the quote. I don't remember him saying these things, but they are linked if you are interested in finding out where and when. His affinity for McDonald's, another fast food fare. Cleanliness, which is kind of maybe like the exact opposite of true. But all right. And some suggest he identifies as a fatalist for effect. As a former associate put it to me, he decided it was useful in certain moments and offers it up when it's convenient, said D'Antonio, the biographer. It's like his supposed Christian faith that had never really showed itself until he needed it for that voting block. Added Barbara Reyes, who started working for Trump in the 1970s and was construction manager for Trump Tower. There is no doubt Trump is portraying himself as a fatalist. Emphasis on portraying. Interesting. And I would say that's probably true, that he's using it for effect. But when D'Antonio says he decided it was useful in certain moments and offers it up when convenient, I think that when convenient isn't when people are like, well, what's your philosophy? Oh, I'm a fatalist. I think it's convenient then. Because, the answer, if you answer, what's your philosophy, Mr. President, or Mr. Trump, if he's not president? right? What's your philosophy? If you say, I don't know what philosophy means, then that, you don't look like a genius, which is what his claim is. I have a really smart brain, right? You can't say, I don't know what that means. Oh, I'm a fatalist. Oh, yeah, really? Interesting. Well, tell me about that. I have to leave now, right? It's okay, sure. But I think what's useful to him is, how do you argue with the notion that we'll see what happens? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We'll see. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. That's a conversation ender. That's what makes it useful to him. This conversation is getting uncomfortable for me. What's making it uncomfortable? People are asking me to explain myself. We'll see what happens, right? Mr. Trump, what's the most important piece of advice you could give anybody on business? He'll blather for a little while. But what you said actually means that something, or here's an inherent contradiction. Look, maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. Try it. You'll see what happens. We'll see. Some people are able to make it work. Some people are not. It's a natural thing. You're born with it or you're not. And so he just ends conversations that way. What about North Korea? What are you going to ask him for? How are you preparing? What do you want to do about China? How are you going to handle Russia? We'll see. We'll see what happens. We don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. And, what's the follow-up question? How do you think it will come out? I don't know. We'll see. Why don't you have any prediction for us? Look, I'm a fatalist. Okay, but, don't you have any kind of a plan at all? We'll see whether I have a plan. If it works, then I had a plan, and it was great. If it doesn't work, then my plan wasn't so good. We'll see what happens. But even if there's a performative aspect to this, just to return to our article, and there's a performative aspect to everything Trump does, he has said these things too much and for too long for it only to be for show. And it started early on. I'll never marry, and I'll die before I'm 40. A not yet 30-year-old Trump, amazingly enough, told a representative from the bankrupt Penn Central Railroad he was dealing with to try to launch his business career in the mid-1970s. Huh. What an odd thing to say. His older brother, Fred Trump Jr., did die young at 43 in 1981, an alcoholic, crippled by their cold, competitive father. His death affected everything that has come after it, Trump would say, suggesting that Freddie's fatal mistake was that he was too trusting. And I guess he trusted you too, because you, as I understand it, raided his trust fund so that his kids went without health insurance or something like that. Crazy. This was a black mark in the middle of Trump's initial reputation-making run of success. The conversion of the crumbling Commodore Hotel into the gleaming Grand Hyatt, followed by the inspired, ambitious erection, of Trump Tower. And that was well chosen, and you know it. Trump crowed constantly, of course, but his overall outlook was not altogether optimistic. What does it all mean, he said in the New York Times magazine in 1984, when some wacko over in Syria can end the world with nuclear weapons? This was in 1984, and of course, no wacko in Syria could have done that. But all right, you can't be scared, Schwartz, that is, Tony Schwartz, wrote in The Art of the Deal, which came out in 1987. You do your thing, you hold your ground, you stand up tall, and whatever happens, happens. By the way, F you for charging me money for telling me I'm going to teach you the art of the deal. Really? Awesome. And you're a great deal maker, I am told on television by you. What's the art of the deal, sir? How can I be successful like you? Don't be scared. Do your thing, whatever your thing is. Do the thing. Hold your ground. Stand up tall. And whatever happens, happens. Thank you. I want my effing money back. That's the art of the deal. I don't know. Do your thing, and then a thing will happen. Thank you. That is the art of the deal, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm thinking it ends like the Molly Shannon thing. Deal-making superstar. That's it. That's amazing. I never realized that. Anyway, after 3 of his most important casino executives were killed in a helicopter crash in 1989, I remember that, This view took on a grimmer, even morbid tinge. And again, it's not really much of a worldview. They asked him a tough question. What do you think about your guys got killed? Whatever happens, happens. My own sense of optimism in life was greatly diminished, he told Playboy, exactly the place you want to go for this interview, in early 1990. He called their deaths a tragic waste. It's basically what I heard on television. You're involved in so many activities, deals, promotions, in the deep of the night. This isn't even him. It's like the deep of the night. That doesn't sound like something Trump would say. This is the interviewer. Playboy's Glenn Plaskin is asking him, you're involved in so many activities, deals, promotions, in the deep of the night. After the reporters all leave your conferences, are you ever satisfied with what you've accomplished? Life, he responds, life is what you do while you're waiting to die. Read me a fortune cookie, this guy did. Life is what you do when you're waiting to die, Trump responded. You know, it is all a rather sad situation. Holy macaroni. I mean, is there any clearer sign that he doesn't know what he's saying? I read this somewhere. Life is what you do while you're waiting to die. You know? It's all a rather sad situation. I mean, it's a little more than sad. Life is what you do while you're waiting to die. That is sad, in a way, except 10,000 bazillion times more than just sad. But I don't have any words. I have a really smart brain, though. So that's it. You know, it's all a rather sad situation. And then Plaskin, by the way, hoping to salvage this stupid interview, says, life or death? Which is the sad situation? Life or death? What do you think his answer is? Does he have an answer? No, of course not. We'll see what happens. I don't know. His answer is both. We're here. We live our 60, 70, or 80 years, and we're gone. You win, you win. And in the end, it doesn't mean a hell of a lot. I mean, all that, please, don't call it a philosophy. It's just, I don't know. What happens to you when you die? I don't know. What happens to you while you're alive? I don't know. You should be president. That's the choice we've made here. We have made a colossal error. We knew we did, obviously. But this is worse than I ever thought. Maybe this is the scariest thing ever. And not because North Korea, but because this guy doesn't have any concept that he's even a living, breathing being. Amazing. That year, in his second book, where are we, 1990, Trump noted life's tragedies and the relentless passage of time, which he never spoke out loud. Somebody ghost wrote that for him. Surviving at the Top, I guess is the book under discussion, came out when he was barely surviving. God damn it, we missed it by that much. And nowhere close to the top. He had detonated his marriage by cheating on the mother of his first 3 children, for which, by the way, I note that the kids don't seem to really blame him at all in any real or serious way, but I think maybe they really secretly do. But, yeah, he detonates all his marriages this way because he's a philandering idiot because nothing matters. Even his marriage. Do you promise to love, obey, blah, blah, blah. We'll see. That was his marriage. We'll see what happens. And I mean, that would have been something. He had detonated his marriage by cheating on the mother of his first 3 children and fallen into billions of dollars of debt, where he still is, as a direct result of his series of terrible business decisions. This is linked. In the late 1980s. We know that all of his decisions are terrible. When this didn't stop him, though, when he was worth more financially alive than dead to lenders from banks and Atlantic City gaming officials who could have snuffed him out, and some of those Atlantic City guys really could have, and sent him to personal bankruptcy plus more permanent disrepute, when he came off in the pages of tabloids in their blanket coverage of his divorce as not so much a philandering cad as a conquering Don Juan, Trump's stated fatalism began to sound less pessimistic and more like bulletproof bravado. What scares you the most? A Newsday reporter asked him in 1991. If you were a tree, what would scare you? What? Nothing scares me. Nothing, he answered. I'm a great fatalist. There's it. Whatever happens, happens. And you just have to go along with it. That's one of the reasons I've been able to survive the way I've been able to survive. And another fantastic philosophical moment. The way I've survived is I survive. Because what happens, happens. A is A. Thank you. What a genius. There's the Wharton brain at work for you. I take things very much as they come, Trump said. Basically, everything that comes, I take. I deal with the cards that are dealt me. And I think I do it well. I'm very much a fatalist. I always have been one. But I'm more so now. How is that even possible? You're a very big fatalist. I am a great fatalist. And have you always been a fatalist? Yes, I have, but I've never been more of a fatalist than I am now, except I always have been, but more so now. How do you mean? Well, when I was 20, I said, whatever happens, happens. But now that I'm 40, I say, whatever happens, happens. You see? So I'm even more of a fatalist. Oh my God. All I can say, and I wish this was all he had said, in 1992, in the Sunday Times of London, all I can say is that what's important is to survive. Top of my list. And I was really blessed with an ability to withstand pressure. $200 million worth. Most people would have been in the corner sucking their thumb if they were crucified like I was last year. I'm not going to look back and say it was tough and blame myself. Why the hell would you do that? We've come through. So that's what we learned from his fatalism. Wayne Barrett wrote in his Trump biography that was published that year, allowed him to hold himself blameless. Now that's an important observation, and I'm glad we got to add that one. And no amount of eventually reclaimed success, wealth, and esteem altered the fundamentals of his stance. By 1997, Trump no longer was mired in his dicey, self-inflicted financial ditch. And Larry King had him on CNN, the pinnacle of success, right? The news of the moment was the murder of Gianni Versace. Spree killer Andrew Cunanan had shot the renowned fashion designer in front of his Miami Beach mansion. It's unbelievable what happened to Versace, Trump told King. You going to make this into a philosophical statement? Really? Okay, well, I'll tell you what. We're going to take a 1-minute break. I'd love to, you can tease you with this one. Come back and find out how this makes sense. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Just taking that 1-minute break. Get a little sip of water and see if we can find out more about the super deep philosophy underlying Trump's whatever the F he's got going on. So that we left off, Gianni Versace had just been shot. And philosopher king Donald Trump shows up on philosopher Larry King's television show to say, it's unbelievable what happened to Versace. All right. King says, Larry King. Oh, I shouldn't have cleared my throat. I'm doing Larry King. John Kennedy once said, I can't do Larry King, can I? If someone wants to get you, and that's all they think about, you're in trouble, King said. All right, well, yes, that's true. And that's what Trump says about. True, absolutely true. And they don't have to be smart. They just want to get you. And what you can do is you can take precautions. Not a fatalist does not say this, but okay. What you can do is take precautions. And you can surround yourself with some very tough people, Trump said, referring to his stable of burly bodyguards. That's his big philosophy, by the way. The world is a dangerous place, but here's what you can do. To help yourself, hire a bunch of people who know what the hell they're doing and use them as human shields. Not, does he train himself? Does he do anything? No. I hire people to kill anybody that comes close to me. So, King said, Trump the fatalist has to be aware and give thought to the Cunanans. There are Cunanans out there. I am aware, Trump said. You have to be aware. Otherwise, you're a fool. But again, I don't think you can change your entire life. You're not going to go into a very safe little place and just lock the door and never come out. I just don't think you can do that. And I am a fatalist. I say, hey, what happens, happens. And maybe it's predestined. Who knows? This continued into the new millennium. Unfortunately, he survived. In 2004, Trump was unquestionably a star. Again, and they let you do anything when you're a star. Bigger and more famous than he had ever been in the heady, easy money 80s. The man in charge, the boardroom boss, the scowling face of The Apprentice. And, of course, none of that was true except for the part about that he was the face of The Apprentice. And he was a bigger star and had more money, but he wasn't in charge of anything. He wasn't the boardroom boss. That was all an act. But okay, fine. Oprah Winfrey had him on her show, because why not? In the odd, unexpected context of talking about his strange flyaway hair, Trump managed nonetheless to sound a familiar fatalistic note. So anyway, in the end, I don't know if anything matters. Again, now, Michael Musson was commenting, I read this during the break, that, yeah, they're overthinking Trump. Narcissists are deeply insecure. Fatalism is an attempt to deflect responsibility for your failures, or even for your successes if you're not particularly, vain like he is. So I don't know. I mean, to me, it's like he's not saying anything, so it's difficult for me to turn it into a philosophy. And he comments again here. Trump then, it's unbelievable what happened. Trump now, it's fake news. Didn't happen. I guess that's true. When it happens with him and he needs to deflect blame, he just says it's fake news. I don't know if they're related or not, but yeah, I mean, to ascribe this philosophy to, I don't know, whatever, is... I mean, well, I'll tell you what, if it really is a philosophy, my son is going to do fantastic in his college interviews after all. To me, it's like you sound like you don't care about anything. You really got to change. You can't answer everything. Oh, whatever happens. And now he could say, whatever happens, happens. And people will be like, wow, are you thinking of majoring in philosophy, business, government, and law? What's your pleasure? I don't know. We'll see what happens. Holy mackerel. There's no... This guy is like the Dalai Lama of I don't give a crap. I wish I could say one day I'll let it all loose. Okay. I like that. It's going to be a good line, right? Even if it's censored, if I have to beep myself, right? Oh, I think I have a beep sound somewhere in this, and even in the right computer too. But I think I have just like a really long beep sound. Yeah, like that, right? So... I can just beep myself like that. I like the idea of of saying you're like the Dalai Lama of I don't give a. That would be a hell of a line. But now that I've set it up and worked on it so hard, it's not funny anymore. All right. So let's see. Moving on here and getting back to the rest of this article is really actually quite fascinating. I didn't think we would spend this much time on it. But Jonathan Chait knows what he's talking about, I guess. So where were we? They were asking about the hair. Anyway, in the end, I don't know if anything matters. How is that even about the hair? I'm curious, like, why do you pretend you're not bald and have this stupid hair? I don't know. Nothing matters. Then be bald. I don't want to. I mean, really, honestly, nothing matters. I guess it's perfect as a philosophy for him in the sense that it justifies whatever you want to do. Do you want to just sit back and accept fate? Right, then that's what I'm doing. Do you want to pretend you have hair on your head by growing it 6 feet long on one side and swirling it around like a Dairy Queen? Yes. Why? Because nothing matters, and the fact that everybody knows that my hair is ridiculous doesn't matter. I guess. That same year, what year was it? I don't know, when he was on Oprah. 2004. There we go. That same year, he was on CNN for another hype session, there to pump his latest book, How to Get Rich, this time with Wolf Blitzer. Why? Look, the gallery of people who are interviewing him, even before he's president. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what happened to him. You've got a TV hit. Oh, it's Wolf Blitzer. You've got a TV hit. Why does he sound like he's got that weird throaty voice? You've got buildings. You got golf courses, casinos. He's deeper than that. You got a great family. I can't do a Wolf Blitzer, I don't think, but you get the idea. You got a new book that's coming out that's probably going to be a #1 bestseller. I think if I played a little Wolf Blitzer, I could maybe mimic it. What else does Donald Trump want to do in life? So Trump responded to this slobber ball of a question, nice, by wallowing in his fatalism with an almost depressive world weariness that certainly wouldn't have been on any publicist's list of talking points. I think it's just a continuation, honestly. But this is what's going to come out with Kim Jong-un. He didn't prepare for talking to Wolf Blitzer that's what it is he didn't prepare for talking to anyone, because why would he? I'm a famous guy and everybody wants to hear whatever crap I spew. I proved it by selling a book that said the secret to business success is, I don't know, do whatever, and then what happens, happens. So that must be it. And I mean, again, I find startling parallels between myself and Donald Trump every once in a while. It's very worrisome. Like, how do I do the show? I don't know. People like to hear what I have to say, no matter what the hell it is. Oh, don't you hate that? Yeah, I do. But, you know, whatever. We'll see. Maybe I do hate it. Maybe I don't. Oh, my God. Anyway, I'm okay, everybody. I'm going to survive. What do you want to do in life? So this is how he answers. I think it's just a continuation, honestly. He said, life. Here he pivoted. The long-awaited pivot. It happened in 2004. We missed it. This is sad. No politician would say this. So, you know, I'm not going to be a politician. We'll see. It's a good prediction. Life is what you do while you're waiting to die. Sad. Horrible statement. I hate to say it, but I say it, you know, because it's true. Life is what you do while you wait to die. Okay? I mean, that is interesting and depressing, I guess, but so, again, he's got no answer. That's the closest he comes to being self-deprecating, I guess. Weird. Trump, though, perhaps sensing this was not a tone that would sell books, good idea, shifted quickly to a more characteristic call to hedonism. That's a great one, right? Life, I don't know. It doesn't make a difference. Life is what you do while you're waiting to die. So what should you do while you're waiting to die? Porn. Basically. Beautiful women. Beautiful women. Just grab them. And I guess that's it. You can grab them by the pussy because suppose you get caught. Suppose you grab the wrong woman by the anything and she karate chops you in the face and breaks your nose. Whatever happens, happens. Of course, I'll sue you. I'll have you flogged within an inch of your life. But okay, so that's what he's doing with his life. What should you do? A more characteristic call to hedonism. That'll sell some books, right? Have fun. Just enjoy it. It's like Spinal Tap. Have a good time all the time. That guy was, you know, generally regarded as a joke and an idiot. I mean, the whole movie was about the fact that they all were, but he was the dimmest of the bulbs they had on screen. And this is the guy who's president now. Actually, yeah, same thing. Have fun. Just enjoy it. The notoriously impetuous, self-indulgent Trump said 2 years before his alleged adulterous, condomless, single-position Tahoe tryst. That's unfair. I mean, who cares? Tahoe tryst with porn star Stormy Daniels. What was he going to do? Although, I guess I would say, if you watch anybody's porn movies, right? And then you get that porn actress in bed with you, it seems like you'd be like, this is maybe a once in a lifetime thing. Maybe not so for Donald Trump, but let's say it is. The great fun of doing this, you would think, he would say, is now in real life, I can do the things I've seen you do on screen. And they look like fun because I'm a porn fan, obviously. I mean, speaking strictly for myself, I'm not. But what can I tell you? He is. And as you know, yesterday he was complaining. Now it's all over the place. Mika Brzezinski saying he's complaining that he can't watch porn. So, okay, you're a porn fan. Big deal. I don't care. Seems to me that you would want to, then try these things. But what do I know? I'm not as big a fan as he is. But you would think fandom, like why bother being a fan of porn, I suppose, unless you thought, hey, I'd like to try that. That actually looks like fun. That is entertaining to me. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a strain of fandom by which you could say, that looks terrific for you. I'm just going to sit here and do my thing. All right, do what you want to do. I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to have sex with Stormy Daniels. Besides which, you'll probably just end up embarrassing yourself if you try anything. So you might as well not. I guess maybe that's not bad advice. Look, I'm getting what I want out of this, the gratification, I'm not going to try to stand on my head and do that move in whatever film she did where she spins around and the chicken is over here and yada yada. That just seems ridiculous. I'm just here for the sex. You know, that might be the most honest thing he's ever done. So there we are, 2 years before his alleged adulterous, condomless, single-position Tahoe tryst with porn star Stormy Daniels, though he did try to have a threesome with some of the other porn stars who were there. Don't forget that. That when his fifth child with his third wife was 4 months old. Enjoy doing what you're doing. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't mean anything. And it also doesn't mean, a real fatalist would say, it doesn't mean anything whether you're enjoying it or not. People ask me, how do you handle pressure? He wrote in 2007, no he didn't, in a book titled Think Big and Kick Ass, which I would shorten to just, I have a big ass. It would really be a better book title. His answer, think big and kick ass. Are you ready for thinking big? The truth is, it does not matter. What the hell difference does it make? You see what is going on in Iraq? You have seen a tsunami wipe out hundreds of thousands of people. Think about how 3,000 people died in the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001. Tragic. And how 300,000 people died for the tsunami in Asia in 2004. Good sentence there, by the way. 300,000 people died for the tsunami. Like, I'm killing myself in the name of the tsunami. Whatever. Can't even get the sentence written right. And by the way, normal candidate running for president who writes in his book, think about how 3,000 people died in the World Trade Center on September 11th. Let me tell you something about that. The truth is, it doesn't matter. What the hell difference does it make? Can you imagine a candidate, a regular candidate, surviving that? No, I don't think so. Let's see. So there we are. How about 3,000? Think about how 3,000 people died in the World Trade Center, about 300,000 people in the tsunami in Asia in 2004, 100 times more. I don't even know what that means. That's the sentence. Can I remind you again? What the hell difference does it make? You see what is going on in Iraq. You've seen a tsunami wipe out hundreds of thousands of people. Think about how 3,000 people died in the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. Tragic. And how 300,000 people died for the tsunami in Asia in 2004. 100 times more. Okay, is that it? 100 times more than 3,000? That's the big... let me tell you how to think big. This number is this many times bigger than that number. Wow, I am glad I bought this book. What does it really matter? He continues. What does it really matter if you have a big presentation to give to the president of Citibank at 9 a.m.? Just be wise and have a great sense of humor, because problems that may seem big to you really do not matter in the grand scheme of things. Interesting, and I'm sure in his day-to-day life they don't, but, as the author points out, when the stakes is everybody else's life, I wish you'd prepare. Although I did observe yesterday, honestly, about the preparation for the North Korea summit thing. What do you think would be the difference in the outcome of the summit with Kim Jong-un had he really, really put his mind to it and studied hard? And then I think you'll come around to his answer. It doesn't matter. It would not have made a difference. It wouldn't have made a single bit of difference in the world. Not only because Kim Jong-un isn't really there to negotiate, but also because Trump at his best is no better than this. So, what the hell difference does it make? I find myself once again coming around to his point of view. The Trump credos can sound a bit cribbed from self-help staples like don't sweat the small stuff. But in many ways, Trump wasn't sweating the big stuff either. Have you ever heard of Peggy Lee? Is that all there is? A flittingly introspective Trump said in an interview with D'Antonio for his biography that came out in 2015. It's a great song because I've had these tremendous successes, and then I'm off to the next one because it's like, huh? Is that all there is? And in 2016, a little less than 3 months before Election Day, he was asked in an interview with a reporter from the Times about his father's Alzheimer's disease, which he has inherited, I guess. Fred Trump had died at 93 in 1999, often unable to recognize the people around him. Trump said he wasn't scared by the thought that he too might go that way. He already doesn't know anybody around him. He said he was ready to, quote, accept it. Look, he said, I'm very much a fatalist. What does Trump mean when he talks about fatalism and being a fatalist? I'm going to do whatever I want. Conventional wisdom is usually wrong. Let the chips fall where they may. Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't him. That was Sam Nunberg pretending to be him. That was Nunberg's encapsulation of the Trump philosophy. And what he's saying, without actually saying it, it reminds me of the Christian right predestination concept, D'Antonio said in an interview. What they think is that God has a plan and your success is evidence that God intended you to be successful and chose your soul for greatness before you were even born. And it's a circular kind of logic that says that if I dominate, it's because God wants me to dominate. And your opposition to me means you're opposed to God. And I think that what Trump is expressing is a sort of a secular version of that all is predestined. The fact that I am president is proof that the universe, or God, whatever, intended something great for me. And I changed the emphasis of that, I think, probably appropriately. But I'm sure that when he said it, it was all is predestined. The fact that I'm president is proof that the universe or God intended something great for me. But I think that in Trump's mind, that comes out. The fact that I'm president is proof that the universe or God intended something great for me. The rest of you can kiss my ass. It's worked till now, and I think it's still working, for him, but it's worked, according to Tim O'Brien, another Trump biographer, in a highly specific setting, and one that isn't entirely operative anymore. I think he is a fatalist, O'Brien told me, but here's the rub. He's empowered to be a fatalist because he's been insulated from his failures by wealth, privilege, and celebrity. So the impact of catastrophes is more muted in his world than it is in the world of the average person. The difference now, of course, is that there's no difference between his world and the world. There's nothing but hot spots, nothing but high stakes. Iran, China, North Korea, Puerto Rico, the Mexican border. Nothing but consequences. It will work out. It'll work out. Can't tell you exactly how or why, but it always does. It's an interesting journey. This is about North Korea. He just said it yesterday. It's an interesting journey. It's called the land of the unknown. Who knows? Maybe we'll make a deal. Maybe not. Trump said in a speech the other day at the headquarters of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, of all places. Maybe and maybe not. Who knows? Remember what I say, he said recently on the South Lawn of the White House. We will see what we will see. And no better way of summing it all up, that once again, his big philosophy is A is A. And if you don't think it's A, maybe it's B. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to figure it out. All right. Thanks to everybody who's been listening along here. I have no reason to believe that anybody would ever do it again, but people are enjoying it, and I have to say, I really liked. I like to be reminded of what I said on the show because I can't remember from minute to minute what the hell I just said. But the service that some of you are providing in spreading around the fun things, like little quotes that you enjoyed from the show, is very fun. Because then I remember, oh yeah, I remember saying that. That was really fun, and I enjoyed it. Bill had sent one around yesterday, and I guess he really liked my observation about smash your phones from Sean Hannity. This is like the fifth piece of durable equipment he's told people to smash. I like that. I like to be reminded of what just happened. And I saw that, I remember D. Gordon Liddy, whose name we called the other day, Ideologue, had picked one up. Do you want to pretend you have hair by growing it 6 feet long on one side and swirling it around like a Dairy Queen? Hey, I had a funny moment. This way I get to enjoy the show too. So thanks for doing that, everybody. And why don't we tweet that one around and everybody can have fun and share that one. And new people will know that we have a fun show and come and listen to it. All right, let's see. I know other things happened, and we have some time left to try and get some of those things in. Big news today is the seizure of the reporter's data. I guess I first thought this was like a seizure of the notebook and phone of a reporter in a leak investigation. But it's a big deal because it's big news and First Amendment and yada yada, but also it's complicated and has implications for the previous administration, which can't be escaped. And everybody's talking about it, so we ought to too, just because it's needs to be on the record. Ex-Senate aide, though, has been charged in all this after the seizure. The target of the seizure was the New York Times reporter, and the target of the investigation, the leaker, an ex-Senate aide charged in a leak case where the Times reporter's records were seized. And I wasn't clear on what had actually been seized. So now we get some clarification here. A former Senate Intelligence Committee aide was arrested on Thursday in an investigation of classified information leaks, where prosecutors also secretly seized years' worth of a New York Times reporter's phone and email records. This is actually a little complex, but very interesting. The former aide, James A. Wolfe, 57, was charged with lying repeatedly to investigators about his contacts with 3 reporters. According to the authorities, Mr. Wolfe made false statements to the FBI about providing 2 of them with sensitive information related to the committee's work. He denied to investigators that he ever gave classified materials to journalists, the indictment said. Hard to argue, as the FBI are rolling up Trump campaign aides and officials and hangers-on for lying to the FBI. Hard to argue that other people shouldn't suffer consequences if they also lie to the FBI in an investigation. So there is that, although there is, again, also the complicating factor of exactly what's being passed around here. Another conundrum, and not unlike the ones we've been dealing with for a couple of years, really, since Edward Snowden. Do we want to know this stuff? Yes. Is it dangerous sometimes to reveal it anyway? Yeah, that too. Are there laws against revealing it this way? Yes. Are we for, like, law and order, and if you do something wrong, you own up to it and pay for it? Mostly, yes. But are there exceptions to the rule? Sure, there are. Am I saying that Snowden should be one of them? I was never super comfortable saying so, but I could never bring myself either all the way around to saying, yeah, he should be in jail. I mean, I knew that what he had done was revealed classified information, and he wasn't sticking around to face the consequences. But the truth is the consequences normally, and this will perhaps lead us to our next discussion point, the consequences are you get locked up and any information gets bottled back up as best as they can, and then we don't know stuff, and it's important for us every once in a while to blow the whistle on things. I don't really know exactly how I feel about any of these things. We'll see what happens. I'm a fatalist when it comes to these kind of conundra. Conundra? I don't know. Is that the one that ends in, it's a plural to conundra or conundrums? Conundrum sounds dumb, but conundrum sounds pretentious. So you tell me. The former aide, again, James A. Wolfe, 57 years old, is the target here. Mr. Wolfe, the Intelligence Committee's Director of Security, that's bad, really, honestly, was slated to appear before a federal judge on Friday in Washington. Reached on Thursday before his arrest, Mr. Wolfe declined to comment. He probably was watching the Stanley Cup, like apparently everybody else in Washington. Congratulations to the Capitals, by the way. I don't, watch the hockey, but I guess everybody said things went really well. So congratulations to the Capitals. Mr. Wolfe and his case led to the first known instance of the Justice Department going after a reporter's data under President Trump. The seizure was disclosed in a letter to the Times reporter, Ali Watkins, who had been in a 3-year relationship with Mr. Wolfe. And I don't know what that means exactly. And I think I scanned the rest of the article to find out, you mean like they were dating one another, or was the relationship reporter and source? I'm not entirely certain. Maybe this has been discussed elsewhere and I've been blind to it, but that was an odd way of putting it. And I don't know if it makes a difference in terms of the case, but it's interesting to note the language anyway. And again, like they said, this is the first known instance under President Trump because apparently the seizure suggested that prosecutors under the Trump administration will continue the aggressive tactics employed under the Barack Obama administration, but also that the seizure was made some time ago and the Times and the reporter were notified of it but only just now is it becoming public knowledge. So it could be the case that there's another such seizure has taken place out there somewhere, and we just haven't learned of it yet. Court documents, in his role with the committee, Mr. Wolf was responsible for safeguarding classified and other sensitive information shared with lawmakers. He stopped performing committee work in December and retired in May. So not the guy you really want also being the leaker. I mean, that's the kind of person who'll be in a position to leak. Many people are, but you're the one that they'll be watching and all this. So whatever, it didn't seem to work out. But whatever happens, happens. He's a fatalist. Hi everybody, it's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Or read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Time to wind things up for the day and for the week, really, in our last segment. Let's continue then with the big news story of the day, the seizure of Ali Watkins' data, if not her actual notebook and phone. But let's find out a little bit more about what's going on in the background, what the complications are. And I already have an idea where we might go with this. Just for a little bit of thinking over the weekend. We'll see whether we make it all the way there. We'll see what happens. You know, what could happen on the show? Who knows? Right, where were we? Court documents describe Mr. Wolf's communications with 4 reporters, including Ms. Watkins, using encrypted messaging applications. That's not helping you, apparently. It appeared that the FBI was investigating how Ms. Watkins, this is the crux of the case, I guess, originally, how Ms. Watkins learned that Russian spies in 2013 had tried to recruit Carter Page, a former Trump foreign policy advisor. You know who he is. So that's what's happening here. I guess when the news that broke that Carter Page had been recruited or that the Russians had tried to recruit Page as early as 2013 was kind of a startling revelation. It's good that we know it. Bad for the Trump administration, I guess, that we know it. And that's what made them wonder, hey, wait a second, let's do something about this. Now, I guess if that's classified information at the moment, it would make a great scoop for Watkins, and it's important that we know it. But, yeah, was he authorized to disclose it? Probably not. It's one of those situations where I think it's better if we know this. And it's somewhat shady for the Trump administration. I mean, it's more than somewhat shady. It's horrible for the Trump administration to be, putting all of this resources into, busting the person who says, hey, guess what? Trump's whole operation is puppetry and spying for the Russians, and here's how we know it. Oh, thanks for telling us. We did want to know that. That's sort of like whistleblower level, but okay. So fine. I guess in a way he's doing what whistleblowers do. He blows the whistle and then he gets arrested for it, and now we'll see how well he does versus the guy who fled to Russia, which, ironic in hindsight now, Russia wasn't the place for you to go, I guess, unless, of course, they were the ones that asked you to reveal this. And how complicated would all that be? That'd make a mess of things. Anyway, FBI agents, did I get to the end of this? No. There's more. Here's what she did with the information. Ali Watkins gets the info that Carter Page had been recruited, or the attempt had been made in 2013. She published an article for BuzzFeed News on April 3rd, 2017, about the attempted recruitment of Mr. Page, in which he confirmed the contacts. Now, FBI agents approached Ms. Watkins about the relationship she had with Mr. Wolf, saying they were investigating unauthorized leaks. Still doesn't really describe it. The Justice Department told her in a letter sent in February that her records had been seized. So she knew in February. We're finding out now in June. The Times learned on Thursday of the letter which came from the National Security Division of the United States Attorney's Office in Washington. Interesting. So the Times, is that where she works now? And was she not able to disclose that to them? That's an interesting thing too. In another case, the indictment said Mr. Wolf used an encrypted messaging app to alert another reporter in October of 2017 that he had served Mr. Page with a subpoena to testify before the committee. The reporter, who was not named, published an article disclosing that Mr. Page had been compelled to appear. After it was published, Mr. Wolf wrote to the journalist to say, "Good job, and I'm glad you got the scoop," according to court papers. Same month, Mr. Wolf reached out to a third reporter on the same unidentified app to offer to serve as an unnamed source, the documents said. Mr. Wolf also communicated with a fourth reporter using his Senate email account. From 2015 to 2017, prosecutors said. They said he denied those contacts. Well, that seems kind of dumb. But all right, news media advocates consider the idea of mining a journalist's records, and I guess that's what really happened here, mining a journalist's records for sources to be an intrusion on First Amendment freedoms, and prosecutors acknowledge it is one of the most delicate steps the Justice Department can take. Freedom of the press is a cornerstone of democracy. Oops, oh well. And communication between journalists and their sources demand protection, said Eileen Murphy, a Times spokeswoman. So, okay, that's not the government saying it. They're not going to acknowledge that at all. Probably. By the way, wasn't there something that, so, I mean, all of this information, was it all about Carter Page, or just the first two things are about Carter Page? And then the third reporter, I will be an unnamed source for you. And the fourth reporter, it just says he emailed him about what we don't know, and then he denied the contacts. But I'd be interested to know if it was all about Carter Page, or if it was all about people in the Trump campaign who had been, compromised by the Russians. That's interesting to know. Ms. Watkins' personal lawyer, Mark J. McDougall, said, quote, "It's always disconcerting when a journalist's telephone records are obtained by the Justice Department through a grand jury subpoena or other legal process. Whether it was really necessary here will depend on the nature of the investigation and the scope of any charges. We'll see what happens," he says in legalese. A prosecutor notified Ms. Watkins on February 13th that the Justice Department had years of customer records and subscriber information from telecommunications companies, including Google and Verizon, thanks guys, for 2 email accounts and a phone number of hers. Investigators did not obtain the content of the messages themselves. The records, they got his though. The records covered years worth of Ms. Watkins' communications before she joined the Times in December of 2017 to cover federal law enforcement. Okay, so she joins in 2017. She gets the letter in February of 2018, and the Times learns of it in June, or perhaps late May, 2017. Very interesting. She had to work for the Times without telling them for a long time, I guess. During the 7-month period last year, for which prosecutors sought additional phone records, she worked for BuzzFeed News and then Politico, reporting on national security. Shortly before she began working at the Times, Ms. Watkins was approached by the FBI agents, who asserted that Mr. Wolf had helped her with articles while they were dating. There's the answer. She did not answer their questions. Mr. Wolf was not a source of classified information for Ms. Watkins during their relationship, she said. That same month, FBI agents asked Mr. Wolf about an article written by Ms. Watkins, and he denied knowing the reporter's sources. During the same interview with the FBI, Mr. Wolf denied knowing Ms. Watkins. That's not going to work out. But confronted with pictures of the two together, he admitted being in a personal relationship with her since 2014. And by the way, that must have been a hell of a Valentine's Day. I don't know her. You've been dating for 3 years. Happy Valentine's Day, honey. All right, you're trying to stay out of jail, right? Ms. Watkins said she told editors at BuzzFeed News, and I don't know the nature of their relationship either. Could be that they were more casual than that. She told editors at BuzzFeed News and Politico about it and continued to cover national security, including the committee's work. Ben Smith, the editor-in-chief of BuzzFeed News, said in a statement, "We're deeply troubled by what looks like a case of law enforcement interfering with the reporter's constitutional right to gather information about her own government. That is troubling. Although, I guess I would also say, as your editor and perhaps as a friend, I would say, I'm troubled by you dating a source. But, I don't know. What do you say about that? I have no idea what the, ethical canons are in journalism about that. A Politico spokesman, Brad Dayspring. Yeah, we know that guy, right? I think we were laughing once about the fact that his Twitter handle was B Dayspring, and B Day is funny. A Politico spokesman, Brad Dayspring, said that the situation was managed accordingly after Ms. Watkins disclosed the matter, and that her beat was national security and law enforcement, not solely the committee, which other reporters primarily covered. That's an interesting way around of it. Okay. Ms. Watkins also told editors at the Times about the previous relationship when she was hired to cover federal law enforcement. Attorney General Jeff Sessions said last year that the Justice Department was pursuing about 3 times as many leak investigations as were open at the end of the Obama administration. Under Mr. Obama, the Justice Department prosecuted more leak cases than all previous administrations combined. But leaking is a lot easier these days. The Attorney General has stated that the investigations and prosecutions of unauthorized disclosure of controlled information are a priority of the Department of Justice. John Demers, a top Justice Department official, said in a statement announcing Mr. Wolf's arrest. The investigation came to light after the Senate Intelligence Committee made a cryptic announcement on Wednesday that it was cooperating with the Department of Justice in a pending investigation. Earlier, the Senate quietly and unanimously adopted a resolution to share committee information with the Justice Department, quote, in connection with a pending investigation arising out of the unauthorized disclosure of information, unquote. Mr. Wolf, a former Army intelligence analyst, worked for the committee in a nonpartisan capacity for 30 years. He worked closely with both Democrats and Republicans on the committee and gave away all their secrets, I guess. Mr. Trump has complained bitterly about leaks and demanded that law enforcement officials seek criminal charges against government officials involved in illegal and sometimes embarrassing disclosures of national security secrets. I'm not sure that any of this was, but whatever. When law enforcement officials obtained journalists' records during the Obama administration, members of Congress in both parties sounded alarms, and the moves touched off a firestorm among advocates for press freedom that helped prompt the Justice Department to rewrite its relevant guidelines. Under Justice Department regulations, investigators must clear additional hurdles before they can seek business records that could reveal a reporter's confidential sources, such as phone and email records. Okay, and that's what happened here. So let's see. In particular, the rules require the government to have made all reasonable attempts to obtain the information from alternative non-media sources before investigators may target a reporter's information. In addition, the rules generally require that the Justice Department notify reporters first to allow them to negotiate over the scope of their demand for information and potentially challenge it in court. The rules permit the Attorney General to make an exception to that practice if he determines that, for compelling reasons, such negotiations would pose a clear and substantial threat to the integrity of the investigation, risk grave harm to national security, or present an imminent risk of death or serious bodily harm. The Justice Department, or top Justice Department officials, must sign off on any attempt to gain access to a journalist's communication records. It's not clear whether investigators exhausted all of their avenues of information before confiscating Ms. Watkins's information. She was not notified before they gained access to her info from the telecommunications companies. Among the records seized were those associated with her university email address from her undergraduate years. We intend to get to the bottom of these leaks. I think it has reached epidemic proportions, Mr. Sessions said in November during testimony on Capitol Hill. It cannot be allowed to continue, and we'll do our best effort to ensure it does not continue. The Intelligence Committee is responsible for carrying out oversight of American intelligence agencies. We'll kind of know this, including FBI, CIA, National Security Agency, and other secretive operations. It's one of the most tightly secured groups in Congress, with strict rules for lawmakers and the professional staff governing the circulation and release of sensitive and often classified information that passes before the committee. As Security Director, Mr. Wolf would have been responsible for ensuring that those rules were upheld. When the committee became a matter of intense interest as it undertook a bipartisan investigation of Russia's election meddling, Mr. Wolf played a more visible role, ushering witnesses in and out of the committee's secured office space. That was his big job, ushering people in and out. I think he had more to do there. That's the end of the article. Poses some interesting questions, and it's absolutely, worth noting that, this was done under the Obama administration too, and there were lots of critics of it then, and lots of people said, you can't just say, oh, it'll be okay so long as Obama is in charge, because, someday Obama won't be in charge, and gee whiz, that sounds exactly like what I told him about detainee policy, but hey, no one predicted Trump until much later. But still, it was pretty obvious that the next Republican administration, whoever was in charge of it, was going to take the ball and run. And it was perhaps a bad idea to pursue these avenues in the first place. But I guess I would also say, a little bit like filibuster reform, entirely likely that the next Republican administration would have formulated these guidelines for itself, these allowances for itself, regardless of what the Obama administration did. Had they refused to allow their DOJ to seize a reporter's records, you can be pretty sure Donald Trump would have thought of it, or Sessions would have thought of it, and they would have done this on their own anyway. That's not to excuse the fact that, look, if they're going to do it, let them do it, right? Doesn't really help us with Obama, but there it is. And that's a good enough, I think, segue to another situation, which I guess holdover from the Obama administration in terms of what we were doing to whistleblowers and what is now happening under the Trump administration. And, another situation in which, while reporting on the situation at hand, we are still nonetheless concerned with precedents that got set under the Obama administration, and then the lack of concern for some reason of grassroots activists and talking heads and pundits and reporters about this other situation. We've mentioned in the past a couple of times the situation of Reality Winner, the incredibly named whistleblower suspect, now languishing in prison, and for similar reasons, I think, disclosing information relevant to the Russia investigation. But her problem was that she disclosed this information before it was cool, essentially. And I saw Jeremy Scahill yesterday on Twitter wondering why all you liberal peoples, which I guess would include him normally, aren't making a bigger deal out of this. And usually the answer to this is, well, none of you reporter guys are making a big enough deal out of it for us to know what the hell is going on. And we just sit here and read your stuff and then get worried. So if you want us to be worried about something, report about this worrying situation, and then we'll all get worried about it. We're pretty good about that. So he did it in The Intercept. The Persecution of Reality Winner. And interestingly, they have in there, there's a photo illustrating not only just a picture of her, but a picture of the legal documents. Her name is Reality Lee, Leigh, Winner. So in case you're just weirded out by saying Reality Winner, or Reality Winner, as I suppose she would say it, you can say Reality Lee Winner, or RL Winner, if you prefer. And there's a very long discussion and interview here. I guess it's an interview. Who's being interviewed here? Oh, no, this is at first. There's a couple of excerpts here because there's an accompanying podcast. And so, okay, it's just some transcripting here. It starts out up top. I'll give you the beginning here. 1 year ago this month, the FBI arrested a decorated Air Force veteran and NSA contractor and charged her under the Espionage Act, which is unusual all by itself. This week, an Intercepted special on the case of alleged whistleblower Reality Winner. While Paul Manafort, this is sort of the hypocrisy part. While Paul Manafort enjoyed the comforts of his Hamptons mansion on house arrest, Winner was denied bond, kept in a jail, and has been subjected to a public smear campaign by Jeff Sessions' Justice Department. She was the first whistleblower charged under President Trump, and her treatment is unprecedented. Former drone technician turned whistleblower Lisa Ling talks about the campaign to free Winner. Trevor Tim of Freedom of the Press Foundation breaks down how the government is stripping Winner of her right to a fair trial. The Intercept's Peter Maas highlights the injustice and hypocrisy of her treatment. Intercept editor-in-chief Betsy Reed and reporter Sam Biddle talk about the top secret NSA document she allegedly leaked, the irony of the media's silence about Winner's treatment, and why First Look Media is funding her defense. To support Reality Winner's Legal Defense Fund, you can click on the link provided here, and blah, 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 blah. Some promotional material about The Intercept and their podcast. And I guess there's also the audio of the podcast. I guess all of these interviews are played within. And it's really been very interesting in skimming it, and we don't have time to get through the entirety of the thing, but I recommend it to you for weekend perusal. And it's a good question. Why, after all, should Paul Manafort have been let out of prison, let out of house arrest to go have Christmas in the Hamptons? I didn't even realize. I mean, I'm sure I saw the news in passing, but this was sort of startling. JS here. I guess we got to look back at the guide of who's speaking. Who's JS? Jeff Sessions is JS. Is that who we're talking about? I don't think so. One of the other. Well, here's our. JS would be, I guess, Jeremy Scahill. Yeah, it's not Jeff. How do you like that? I'm sure he really enjoyed being confused with Jeff Sessions. Here we go. But Sessions now, or Sessions, see, look what I've done. Scahill setting up the story here by saying, this is a tale of two defendants and two systems of justice. Those are the first words of an essay written by my colleague Peter Maas. These two defendants that he speaks of are former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort and accused whistleblower Reality Winner. Reality Winner, I really want to say it that way. A highly decorated young Air Force veteran who worked on sensitive U.S. counterterrorism operations. Here's Peter. And I guess Peter says it's a tale of two defendants and two systems of justice. Christmas was coming, and Paul Manafort wanted to spend the holiday with his extended family in the Hamptons, where he owns a 4-acre estate that has 10 bedrooms, a pool, a tennis court, a basketball court, and a putting green and a guest cottage. But Manafort was under house arrest in Northern Virginia. Suspected of colluding with the Russian government, the former campaign manager for Donald Trump had been indicted on a dozen charges involving conspiracy, money laundering, bank fraud, and lying to federal investigators. A lobbyist who became mysteriously wealthy over the years, Manafort avoided jail by posting $10 million in bond, though he was confined to his luxury condo in Alexandria, Virginia. That's why in mid-December his lawyers asked the judge to make an exception. Manafort's $2.7 million Virginia home could not provide adequate accommodations for his holiday guests, some of whom would have difficulty traveling because of health problems, the lawyers stated. A day later, the judge agreed to the request. Manafort could have his Christmas getaway in the Hamptons, to which it would be equally difficult to travel, I am sure, unless those elderly relatives were already living in the Hamptons. Who knows? Hundreds of miles away, though, another defendant in an eerily related case was not so blessed. Reality Winner, an Air Force veteran, you know who we're talking about here. Winner was accused of leaking an NSA document that showed how Russians tried to hack American voting systems in 2016. I don't think I really knew exactly what Reality was in jail for. By the way, she's sitting in a small town jail, apparently, during this period in Lincolnton, Georgia. So check this out. I don't think I even knew what she had really leaked here, which is a huge problem. The alleged leak, Winner has pleaded not guilty, came at a time when there was far greater doubt than now about Russian attempts to tip the presidential election. You remember it. I remember it. There was definitely a period where I was saying, blaming all this on Russia sounds really weird and dumb and antiquated. I'm not sure I'm comfortable doing this. And I guess it was during that period she leaked documentation that apparently would establish that this was in fact a real thing. And so it's weird that the Trump administration would throw her in jail and then we'd never hear from her again. Maybe she should have leaked it and then escaped to, if not Russia, perhaps somewhere else. Hong Kong's a good first stop, I understand. The alleged leak, Winner has, of course, pleaded not guilty, came at a time when there was far greater doubt. Remember that? Her case is related to Manafort's in this sense. While Manafort is suspected of aiding the Russian effort, Winner is accused of warning Americans about it. Interestingly, he gets to go to the Hamptons and she is penned in. So that should be an interesting tease for you to take a look at the rest of this Intercept podcast or the transcript of it if you prefer. And that gives us an opportunity to do one more thing. It is weekend, the weekend coming up. It's Friday. You need to know about new names that might enter the lexicon over the weekend and become important players. We're just guessing here, but I got another one for you, and it's a bit of a surprise. Natasha Bertrand has put this together, of course, for The Atlantic. Senate investigators may have found a missing piece in the Russia probe. Good. I love missing pieces. An ex-congressman has alleged ties to the Trump campaign as well as to powerful figures in Russia and the Ukraine. That would make you suspect. Finding out what he knows is crucial, a top Democrat in the Senate says. Who are we talking about? This is a guy who I really thought was a nobody, even though he was in Congress for quite some time. An ex-congressman has attracted scrutiny from the Senate Judiciary Committee as it continues to investigate whether President Donald Trump's campaign conspired with Moscow. You know why, you know when. Kurt Weldon, Republican, former Pennsylvania congressman, lost his re-election campaign more than a decade ago following an FBI probe into his ties to two Russian companies. Wow. Interesting. I guess that was back in the day when Republicans cared about people who hung out with Russians too much. He has, quote, connections to both Russia and the Trump campaign, unquote, that are raising suspicions among senators, a spokeswoman for the Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein said. Feinstein's the committee's ranking member, and she wants to interview Weldon. The reasons for the committee's interest in Weldon are murky, but his ties to Russia are significant. Members of Congress believe, for example, that Weldon may lead to answers about why the Trump administration sought to lift sanctions on Russia in the aftermath of the 2016 election, despite a public statement by intelligence agencies that the Kremlin had tried to help Trump win. Simple enough, right? Trump wants to pay him back. But then again, when has Trump ever wanted to pay a debt? It's a good question. That's not in here, but it's a good question in my mind. Weldon may also have information about the role a Russian oligarch may have played, there's a lot of may-haves, in trying to influence the Trump administration, though Weldon denied this when I asked him about it. Additionally, Weldon appears to have knowledge of a key instance in which a foreign national sought to influence the president through one of his closest advisors. A central theme of Robert Mueller's ongoing investigation. At issue is the question of whether the president and his associates have sought to trade favors with foreign entities for personal gain. Of course they have. Mueller has been investigating, for example, whether Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign chair, tried to use his position to repay old debts to a Russian oligarch, and whether Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared Kushner have influenced Trump's foreign policy decisions based on their business interests. Mueller, of course, also investigating foreign-linked donors to Trump's inauguration fund. Asked how Weldon was connected to the campaign, Feinstein's office wouldn't elaborate, citing the sensitivity of the investigation. Weldon declined multiple interview requests, but a letter Feinstein sent last year to Trump's longtime personal attorney, Michael Cohen, and how ridiculous do you look treating him like a real attorney now, may provide a clue. In it, Feinstein asked for all of Cohen's communications to, from, or copied to Weldon, as well as correspondence related to Weldon, along with nearly 24 other people. Weldon's name, though, stuck out. He had served as a member of Congress and had not been mentioned previously in relation to the Russia investigation, but his connection to Cohen may lie in a mutual acquaintance who has since testified before Mueller's grand jury, a former member of the Ukrainian parliament named Andrei Artemenko. In January of 2017, shortly after Trump's inauguration, Artemenko met with Cohen at a New York City hotel to discuss bringing peace to Russia and Ukraine. Remember that strange peace proposal that got delivered? Also present at the meeting was Felix Sater, a friend of Cohen's and a former business partner of Trump's. All three men confirmed to me that this meeting took place when Artemenko pitched the peace plan, which involved lifting sanctions on Russia in exchange for Russia's retreat from eastern Ukraine. Cohen said he would deliver it to then National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, the notorious spy. According to the New York Times, Artemenko told the newspaper that he had received encouragement for his peace plan from top aides to Russian President Vladimir Putin. You know about that guy. Artemenko also told me that he had gotten confirmation that the peace plan had been left on Flynn's desk, but Cohen walked back his story after the meeting was exposed by the Times, insisting he had thrown the plan in the garbage, which is a totally different outcome. Flynn has not responded to multiple requests for comment. I'd love to know what happened to that. I'd love to know what Kurt Weldon, of all people, was doing there, and it's pretty amazing. Yes, that episode now comes back to the forefront. Cohen finds himself in real trouble. Okay, so do check up on that one. and read a bit about it over the weekend. Oh, there was at least one other thing that quickly flashed across my mind, and then I blanked out. I said, I got to tell everybody about this thing before it ends, but not going to be able to do that because I forgot what it is, and I don't have the capacity to retain these things for more than a few seconds. So how about this? Maybe, just maybe, Justice Putnam will bring you that information on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy following this program. Let's see. Maybe this will remind me of something. Yes, now I remember. I won't be able to get to it. Ahead of the North Korea summit, Trump boasts that it's all about attitude more than preparation. We know about that. The superintendent of Yellowstone National Park is forced from his post after disagreeing with the Trump administration over management of the park's famed bison herd. Devin Nunes is refusing to release transcripts that appear to confirm that key witnesses lied during congressional testimony. And an ex-congressman with ties to Russia. There we go. We'll find out more about that after this. You know that guy.
From
Weldon.
Daily Co's Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Yes, much more to come. And the thing I remembered, and I got to look up the source of this one, the weird trades that he might get in exchange for some sort of deal with the North Koreans now apparently include a gigantic, not quite finished hotel in Pyongyang. There's more than just a hamburger restaurant in the offering. Can you imagine if they swapped them a hotel?